some, it was the tournament of a lifetime. For others, the beginning of the end. Some were reaching immortality. Others were losing everything. USA 94 was no ordinary World Cup. It was a tournament of dreams and disasters. Here are 5 stories that defined USA 94. Before the World Cup in the United States, Colombia was considered one of the favorites to win the tournament. Even Pelé, the king of football, named them his #1 contender for the title. The reason was simple. Colombia had stormed through qualification, including a stunning 5-0 victory over Argentina in Buenos Aires. Unfortunately, the enormous pressure paralyzed the team. In their opening match, Colombia lost 3-1 to Romania, and the dream of becoming world champions began to turn into a nightmare. The match against the host nation became a must-win game. And then tragedy struck in the 35th minute. Colombia lost 2-1 and was eliminated in the group stage. But the real tragedy was still to come. 10 days after the match, Andres Escobar was shot dead in the parking lot outside a bar in Medellin. According to witnesses, he had been insulted and mocked by men linked to Colombia's criminal underworld. The calm and widely respected defender tried to explain that it was only football and that mistakes were part of the game. Moments later, 6 shots were fired. The man convicted of the murder was released after just 11 years in prison, while the others involved escaped punishment altogether. For many Colombians, justice was never truly served. More than 120,000 people attended Andres Escobar's funeral. The streets of Medellin were flooded with Colombia's national colors. The humble defender became a symbol of resistance against the violence and lawlessness that plagued Colombia at the time. Even before the World Cup, Bulgaria had already shown that it could pull off miracles. In their final qualifying match, they had to beat mighty France away from home just to reach the tournament. As the game seemed destined to end in a draw, the Bulgarians struck on a deadly counterattack in the 90th minute to score a shocking winner and send France crashing out. It quickly became clear that this was no accident. After losing their opening match to Nigeria 3-0, it seemed Bulgaria would once again leave the World Cup without a single victory in their history. But in their next match, they demolished Greece 4-0. Then came a historic victory over Argentina, and after a dramatic penalty shootout against Mexico, Bulgaria had reached the quarterfinals. Waiting there were the reigning world champions, Germany, the mighty team of Matthäus, Klinsmann, and Föhler. Nobody gave Bulgaria even the slightest chance. When Germany took the lead through a Lothar Matthäus penalty, the match seemed over. But on the pitch, there was no sign of the overwhelming dominance everyone had expected. First, Hristo Stoichkov, who would later finish as the tournament's joint top scorer, equalized with a brilliant free kick. Then, just 3 minutes later, Jordan Lechkov rose highest to meet a cross and headed Bulgaria into the lead. The German machine was on the ropes. Bulgaria had stunned the world. It was the greatest achievement in the history of Bulgarian football. Italy awaited in the semi-finals. After a hard-fought match, the Italians won 2-1, bringing the fairy tale to an end. Bulgaria finished 4th at the World Cup. It was one of the most incredible stories in World Cup history. When the team returned to Sofia, the entire country erupted. The players were welcomed as national heroes, and the main celebrations took place inside a packed national stadium. The whole city came to a standstill. The players rode through Sofia on a bus, and inside the stadium, the fans gave them an hours-long ovation. A celebration unlike anything Bulgaria had ever seen before, or has seen since. Roberto Baggio was Italy's biggest star, the star of Juventus, the Ballon d'Or winner, and the man in whom an entire nation placed its hopes for a great World Cup. After a shocking defeat to Ireland in the opening match, a wave of criticism hit the Italian team, and Baggio became its face. Italy struggled their way into the knockout stage, but from the round of 16 onwards, Roberto Baggio began to put on a masterclass. His goals and his genius carried Italy through the tournament and all the way to the final against Brazil. For the first time in World Cup history, the final ended goalless. The title would be decided by a penalty shootout. As Roberto Baggio stepped up to the spot, Italy trailed 2-3 in the shootout. Once again, the weight of an entire nation's hopes rested on Roberto Baggio's shoulders.
He's missed it, and Brazil win the World Cup.
Loneliness, shame, disappointment. The sporting tragedy of a man who, only days earlier, had almost single-handedly carried his country to the World Cup final. Before the tournament, Diego Maradona suddenly lost weight, returned to form, and headed to his 4th World Cup. For many, he was already finished, but in the United States, he looked as if he had turned back time. Against Greece, he scored a goal, then ran straight toward the camera and roared into the lens with his eyes wide open. The whole world believed the king had reclaimed his crown. Argentina won its first 2 matches and looked like one of the strongest teams in the tournament. Then came the drama. After the victory over Nigeria, it emerged that this miraculous return to form had a darker side. He tested positive for ephedrine. Maradona was expelled from the tournament. Diego never accepted the decision. Until the end of his life, he insisted that he had never cheated and had never taken anything intended to give him a sporting advantage. Without their leader, Argentina lost both of their remaining matches and crashed out of the World Cup. The image of Diego leaving the pitch hand in hand with a nurse became one of the defining symbols of USA '94. It was not just a farewell to the World Cup, it was the painful final end of an era. Romania, inspired by the genius of Gheorghe Hagi, amazed the world with its attacking football and knocked Argentina out in the round of 16. Sweden unexpectedly claimed the bronze medal, achieving its greatest success since 1958. At 42 years old, Roger Milla became the oldest goalscorer in World Cup history, a record that still stands today. Russian striker Oleg Salenko scored 5 goals in a single match against Cameroon, a feat that remains a World Cup record to this day. Brazil arrived in the United States in search of something it had waited 24 years for. Since Pelé and the great triumph of 1970, Brazil had failed to win another World Cup. But this was not the romantic, flamboyant Brazil of old. They did not play the most spectacular football. They played with caution, maturity, and a more European approach. But they had something the rest of the world envied: Romario and Bebeto. Off the pitch, they could hardly have been more different. Their personalities, their temperaments, their way of life. But on the field, they were one. Romario was a ruthless finisher. Bebeto was the intelligent partner who always seemed to find space. Their partnership became the face of Brazil's success, and one image came to symbolize the tournament: Bebeto's cradle celebration after scoring against the Netherlands, a simple gesture for his newborn son that quickly spread around the world. Brazil lifted the World Cup for the 4th time. No nation in history had ever won more world titles. Brazil was back on the throne of world football.